but it makes the individual at the time feel like that he is trying to better himself. And this ranges all the way from fairly ordinary, sane, decent people, your families, your friends, that are to the point they have learned to live with. They find the irritation of the intellect being incomplete, this forever state of transition, which is simply to say you're alive. The mind can't even see that, because the very things that the ordinary mind, from theologians to philosophers to speculators on matters mystical, the very thing that they attempt to describe, if you met one and you say, well, and they're studying some system, let's say, to liberate the mind or to be more for enlightenment, and you say, well, what's your understanding of enlightenment? And they describe a man that would be enlightened. You say, well, tell me, based on what you understand or what your teacher or what the system teaches you, what would be enlightenment, an enlightened man? I could use a Christian, religious Jew, Muslim, Buddhist, and religious Sikhs. What they'll start describing is what? I'll answer, a dead man. It will not be a man alive. They will describe someone who is, they would call it perfect, even though they'll say, well, now, let's take Christianity. They will say, well, no one is perfect other than God or Jesus. That here are the 10 commandments or the one commandment or whatever they are. Here is what we should be doing. If a man could do this, he would truly be in a new state of consciousness. He would be part of a new kingdom. He would be part of the kingdom of the cosmos or of God if he could do these things. A human, let's take the 10 commandments. The only kind of human that can live by the 10 commandments is a dead man. But don't look at that as just some sort of flip statement. I made a joke. Conversely, notice that those alive will admit, well, we can't do it, but we're striving for it. And they don't realize what they're saying is, we're going to die. What they're saying is, we cannot do this. And all it proves, it doesn't prove they're a sinner. I know they may say it is, but what it proves is they are alive. Life furnishes this kind of drive, and it furnishes what appears to be a kind of screen, a kind of carrot, a kind of apparent external world out there that makes ordinary, sane people try and better themselves. At the simplest level, no criticism intended, because I said it could be your mother, father, good friends, piece of you, most likely, that they are simply satisfied in bettering themselves financially, is one of the old stories, socially. Things physical, and it's just all an offshoot. It's not a knock on money, because all money is having more food stored up than you can eat. All you're back to doing is replenishing the body. And the more money you save up, you look down, you think, well, I could go several days and not work. That is, not have to get out and cure the dissatisfaction of the body. Tomorrow, I got enough for 5 years, 10 years. All of that, wealth, social position, which is just simply the meanest dog in the pack, all of that, looking attractive, is just sex. All we're talking about is sex, security from the elements, and food. That's all you're ever talking about at the physical level. That is all the body needs, and it gets it. You get it individually, man gets it collectively, daily. In your case, literally, individually, and then collectively you can put figuratively, because you personally do not have to engage in sex every day for the race to go on. You do not, in fact, have to engage in sex in your lifetime for the race to go on. But you understand physically, at that level, if you do feel in one day you're hungry, you're horny, you're hot, you can go eat. And nowadays, unless you look like, I don't know what, you can get laid, you can have sex, and you can go buy an air conditioner or go hang around a Shoney's or somewhere and get cool. The point was that many people, just as they should, they attempt to better themselves, and they find it to be agreeable, they find it to be bearable for 60 or 70 years, that they attempt to simply over-replenish the body. That is, to get somewhere in life, to make a name for yourself, to be famous, to be good-looking, to be wealthy. All right. You move up, relatively speaking, even though I remind you this is a distortion, because life is not sequential and is not linear, but then it would appear to be a little higher up. Ordinary people say, well, a man simply out for wealth, a man simply run by the body and by physical concerns is not a true human being. He's not sophisticated. He's just simply not a human in the full sense of the word, and they would say it would be better if a man were attempting to educate himself. It would be better were a man religious in some way, if not specifically denominational, to try and become a more humane, a more caring person, a more insightful person, to be more tolerant. The very things that all humans of every stripe and nationality, life simply makes all civilized people adhere to that same sort of carrot that we should all be more civilized, which is all religions are doing, which is what education is doing. But it is for the collective, man the collective, not the individual. So everyone, in a sense, let's take that of enlightenment, to use a common one again, that the few people there in Paris, they realize there's nothing here in Paris that satisfies me. Here. To try and tell them specifically what it would be to satisfy them, they will look around, the mind will look around and say, oh, you're speaking about so-and-so. And they would begin to come up with, oh, you're talking about some revised edition of Zen or of Sufism or of something. Even those who believe that they're actively involved or interested in such matters as I just mentioned, they are not that far removed from the most mundane of ordinary people. Because in that sense, everyone, those who would profess absolutely otherwise, even if they had ever heard the terms, everyone in a sense is trying to reach enlightenment. Everyone in a sense is trying to awaken to some other level of consciousness, and it does not have to sound that perhaps comic book spooky. It is that everyone is trying to scratch this place. Everyone is trying to satisfy their mind in the same way that they know they can satisfy the body. That they know there's no doubt when you're hungry, that you know just what it is you enjoy eating. You may even get so good that you realize that what I need is some vitamin B. My hunger is just for a certain thing. You know that you go eat it, and you know that it will satisfy you. You know when you're tired, you can lay down and sleep, and you don't ever go to bed and go, I wonder if I'm wasting my time. I mean, if I get in the morning, will I not be? Same way with sex, same way with... Physically surviving, there is no doubt as to what you're doing if you're just ordinary and sane. I said ordinary and sane. I didn't say insane. I heard that. In fact, some of you should wonder why you immediately laughed. I don't care to. I'll leave it to you. Everyone, in that sense, is engaged in some great mystical work, if they are sane and ordinary. But life does not provide collectively enough for it to have any individual effect. There are people, obviously, or that you should know, that will say otherwise. They will say that they have been involved in something or that they are involved with something. And if they can describe it, if they can say what it is a hobby. There's nothing wrong with it. But life does not provide in any collective means which is public. It's the same thing. If it's publicly known, it is for collective consumption. It may or may not survive, as some of the religions have survived in a form that seems to still be functional, regardless of what any individual criticism you may have thereof. But the religions themselves continue to operate. They continue to have adherents and people who say, yes, I enjoy it, or I get something out of it. I get my money's worth, I get my time's worth. It is not what I started out looking for, but all right, I accept it. And there are those that feel the same way about their work. They'll say it about their work, and there are many people that say so, and really trout, my family. My family makes life worthwhile. All of that has to do with the physical level. All of that has to do with a non-scratching, with a continuing non-intellectual satisfaction. There is nothing that life is going to provide collectively that will ever scratch you where it itches. There is nothing, there's no known timetable, there's nothing that's ever been published, there's nothing still traced on the walls of a cave in Spain that says, here's what you should do and this will take you to another state of consciousness. Here is the way to Istanbul. If you can see somewhere that says enlightenment over here, if you have any idea what you're doing, you can immediately, if it helps at all, if you look at yourself as being in the middle of this closed system of life, of our universe, if you looked at yourself as being the center inside of a ball, which would be how many degrees that you could look everywhere, up and down, if someone says, oh, here's enlightenment, at least you're getting somewhere, so to speak, because you can at least cut out one spot. You go, well, I'm narrowing it down. When I speak of the collective and anything that's publicly known, to bring it down to what would appear to be an individual level, is the fact that you, at any ordinary level, under any ordinary conditions, which you have known, and it doesn't matter who you are, what your background, nothing matters. You are thinking in part with the collective mind. You are thinking in part in this great interconnected network that ties all men together. Here, most people cannot even abide the fact, they're not supposed to. You can understand it once you see it. Most minds cannot even abide the fact that man is tied still to his body in such a way that man is a herd animal. That if you try and say something like that, if you were so foolish, assuming you understood what you were talking about and you were still so dumb, which is, which takes oxymoronical to dazzling new heights, but if this happened, if you understood and you tried to tell someone, they could deny it on the spot, that no, this cannot be. Collectively, whatever you think is part of, well, I didn't make that clear, I don't guess. If you tried to tell an ordinary person, a sophisticated person, if you say that man still has much in common socially, that he is still in fact as much a herd-driven animal as a cow, a moose, a wolf, this will, as it should, will somewhere between annoy to infuriate. If you persist that you believe that, an ordinary, educated, sophisticated person, they will say it's not so, which just shows that how much conception they have, how much understanding they have of what life's about. Man is as much physically a social animal as the finest of moose. It is what politics is about, it is what social, anything beyond mere face-to-face or back-to-back sex between another person, everything socially beyond that, we're talking about pecking orders in wolf packs and chimpanzee packs. It simply is. I can't prove it. You either see it or you don't. But also notice, it is out of hand, rejected, and always has been. In the Western world, you can find arguments going on philosophically as far back, further back than the Greeks, and you can hear it today. People say, no, 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 man's much more than that. Yes, he is. But that doesn't say that that's still not what he is. Those are the same people that if you tried to tell them, again, if you were so dumb, if you said, where do all your thoughts come from? And you can't really press it because it really gets them depressed. But if they just said something about, well, what I've learned and what I've, and you said, no, it comes from your stomach. It comes from gastric juices. That's either silly or it's an allegory of some nature that they don't even care to comprehend. They don't even want to deal with it. The life gives man a part of a collective mind. Back to, let's say that you will assume for a second that you can see some validity in the fact that physically, there's nothing wrong, but if we were taking man as being physical and nothing but that, you are as much a herd social animal as a wolf, as a moose. And the idea that ordinary people out there involved with survival of the culturally fittest or the intellectual fittest, or that the smart people run the world. The badass dogs run the world, they always have, which makes the weak dogs, which are normally at the ordinary level, the so-called intellectuals, they're the ones that turn around and find the tyrants and the Attilas of history and go, my God, how could humanity have been so stupid? They always go, have been so stupid. Physically, Attila the wolf runs all packs. And if you had any sense, you want the meanest dog to be running the country, running your pack. Which, getting way off the subject, sort of, not really. It's why it's so easy to condemn the intelligence of political figures, contemporary and historical, because there's a basis for it. They don't have to be smart. If you knew what you were doing, you don't want a smart dog running the pack. Somebody will lead him up. Some other pack will lead him up. You want in your pack, you want a mean-ass dog running it. That's just physically the way it is. And that's why you hang out. That's why people are sociable. No matter to what degree, you may consider yourself in some way a potential hermit and recluse, but you're not. You couldn't stand it. You're not supposed to stand it. But at any rate, if you will take that for a second, it is simply a fact. It's not, the mind will not normally tolerate it. They will not even entertain it, but all you got to do is look around. you're as much a pack animal and a herd animal as any cow and any sheep. Let's say that I could get someone to agree to that for a second, to follow my discussion. I had an ordinary person. And then I said, they said, okay, I'll go along with that for a minute. What's the point? And I said, it is the same situation intellectually. And as most good thinkers are given to hand gestures, they'd probably go, no. You went too far, you went too far. Because the mind will, and there is no explaining, there's no reasoning with this, a man's mind will deny that. The more intelligent he is at the ordinary level, the less likely he is to even discuss the matter. He might ask you again, would you repeat that? Are you saying that men, intellectually, are as much herd-driven, they're as much a captive of what's going on around them as a sheep is in the middle of this huge flock? Is that what you're saying? If I went, oh, yeah. That is up to an edge, which is something else some of you might ponder. There are certain ideas, certain information in life that ordinary, sane people have never been able to tolerate. And I don't mean the point that they won't get in a fist fight, because they won't get in a fist fight, you're still dealing with, well, Hank Aaron was better than Babe Ruth. No, he wasn't. Buddha could have whipped Muhammad. You're dealing with things of very decreased, even potential significance. But there are certain things in life that if someone was stupid enough, or if a bunch of monkeys sitting around with typewriters that couldn't get around to doing all of Shakespeare, that they accidentally come out with certain sentences throughout history. Somebody has said these things. And it never starts wars. It doesn't even start fist fights. They're damn seldom even recorded. But you can say them, and it's like intelligent people look at you like, and about the most they will participate to say, would you repeat that? And you do it a second time, and they go, oh, and they'll leave. For those of you that want a side hobby, is ponder, why is that? Certain things you point out. Back to, collectively, there's no chance that you're ever going to go anywhere if you believe, if you still operate on the basis, until you see that you think with part of a collective mind. And when I say part, I don't mean that some part of your mind is free. What I mean is you're part of a larger mind. You're part of a collective intelligence in the same way you're part of a physical genetic intelligence. That you are stuck here, you are a human. You're supposed to be a human. You're wired up to be a human. You're a human. From the level of consciousness down, you're an animal human. And as I said, you can get some people go, all right, for the sake of argument, okay. And then you say, all right, from the level of consciousness up, you still are. They go, well, I shouldn't even agree to put up with this theoretically, because they cannot go anywhere with that.